So we arrive at Group 31 with 4 albums that have genuinely proven their mettle. They've overcome internal battles like the Beatles' Civil War and these wild genre-spanning opponents.
So now let's delve into the ranking itself, starting with the album that tragically finished at the bottom. But seriously, by Phil Collins.
And this is where the album quest becomes like an intimate psychological study.
Right, the Phil Collins conundrum. Meddling with perfection. Despite being a huge commercial hit, technically flawless, stuffed with smash singles, it got knocked out. What was the critical flaw that doomed it?
The fatal flaw wasn't the music itself.
No.
No. Greenstocks describes it as gorgeously produced and full of lovely songs.
Yeah.
The fatal flaw was entirely structural.
Structural.
Yeah, tied to the physical evolution of music formats and, crucially, personal learned memory. This is where we uncover the most fascinating aspect of this whole project, how personal history can fundamentally alter a critical assessment.
So Greenstocks recounted a very common experience for our generation that moved from analog to digital.
Yeah, he bought But D. Seriously, multiple times.
Yeah.
First the original LP,
Yeah.
then the cassette, and later the CD.
Okay.
And when he started spinning the CD version, especially after having lived with the vinyl for years, he always had this vague, lingering feeling that something was off. He just didn't enjoy it with the same sense of complete satisfaction as when he was younger.
That feeling, that vague sense of dissatisfaction when you revisit a beloved favorite, that's universal.
It is. We often just dismiss it as, nostalgia or just growing up.
Sure.
But Greenstocks, in his meticulous nature, he tied it down to a specific physical and verifiable difference.
So how did that realization finally hit him?
The aha moment, which is a wonderful nugget for the listener, came when he was digitally recording his old vinyl LPs onto his computer.
Ah, okay.
He was digitizing.
Yeah.
But seriously, and by listening to the vinyl and then immediately following up with the CD, he made the crucial damning discovery.
What was it?
The track order on the CD version is, in his words, completely jumbled compared to the original LP.
That is the ultimate musical betrayal. I mean, for a true music fan, that detail is monumental. This wasn't just them adding a new B-side at the end or putting a single version first.
No, the source material explicitly stresses this wasn't a minor tweak. It was a fundamental restructuring. He described it using this powerful language. The sequencing had been meddled with it beyond all recognition.
Beyond all recognition.
Which implies that the original flow, the narrative structure intended by the artist, or at least the one absorbed by the listener, was just fundamentally broken.
That phrasing suggests a real violation of his established memory of the album. Can you give us some specific examples that show this track order trauma? Like, how dramatically did it change the feel?
Okay, let's look at the key moments. On the original LP, a track like Find a Way to My Heart was track 3.
Early on, an important spot.
Right, an early prominent position that established a certain mid-tempo mood near the start of the album. On the CD, that track gets shifted all the way to the very final spot, track 11.
Wow.
Conversely, the smash single Something Happened on the Way to Heaven was positioned near the end of the LP. It provided this final, powerful burst of energy before the closing tracks.
Right.
On the CD, it's moved up to track 4, just completely disrupting the mid-album pacing.
That's more than just a swap. That's a complete reorganization of the emotional peaks and valleys of the record. You learn an album as a story, and Phil Collins, or maybe the record company, basically published a revised edition without telling anyone.
And another key track, the powerful piano ballad, I Wish It Would Rain Down.
Great song.
Fantastic song. Features Eric Clapton on guitar. It was similarly relocated mid-album. This constant shifting creates an experience that just feels wrong to someone who learned the album through the vinyl's inherent structure, dictated by the limitations of 2 physical sides.
But wait, I have to challenge this a little. Isn't objective music criticism supposed to be about the inherent quality of the song, the melody, the arrangement, the production? Is Greenstocks admitting here that his ranking is based on bias, specifically his ingrained memory, rather than an objective critical assessment?
That's the core conflict, and he tackles it head-on. He offers 3 potential reasons for his diminished enjoyment. The first, as you point out, is precisely that, ingrained familiarity. He asks if his enjoyment is lowered purely because he learned the LP track order by heart, and that sequence became, in his words, ingrained into my mind as the correct structure.
So, learned habit overriding critical thinking. What's the second possibility?
The second is the musical merit of the original structure. Maybe the LP order just intrinsically works better musically. It's possible the original sequencing was designed to maximize the dramatic arc or optimize the flow between slower and faster songs. And the random CD shuffling actually ruined the artistic intent.
And the third option, the one that gives the artist the most credit for the change.
He suggests that maybe Phil Collins himself decided to reorder the track list because, freed from the physical constraints of vinyl.
Like needing to put the loudest tracks at the beginning of each side.
Exactly. Maybe he felt the new order was much better, optimizing it for the continuous listening experience of the CD format.
But regardless of the intention, the outcome for Greens to Rocks was negative.
It was.
Now, you mentioned the album still sounds gorgeously produced. Let's dive into what that means technically for a major 1989 pop rock album. What defines that production quality?
Well, that late 80s production quality, it's often characteristic of Hugh Padham's work with Collins and Genesis. It's defined by its absolute sonic clarity, rich layering, and crucially, a very specific drum sound.
The gated reverb.
That's the one. Massive gated reverb applied to the drums, making them sound enormous and distinctly 80s, but the mix stays incredibly clean. Every instrument, from the brass to the piano, sits perfectly in its own defined space. It's warm, but it's also sharp.
So even with the sequencing issue, the quality remains high.
Oh yeah, including the major smash single, Another Day in Paradise.
So we have immense technical quality and massive hits. Why then did it finish at the bottom? It just seems absurd that an album of this caliber would be defeated by the competition.
It finished last due to a combination of that track sequencing trauma and the material itself failing to maintain momentum compared to the visionary scope of the other contenders. Greens to Rocks found that the slower, more introspective numbers, specifically the deeply personal Father to Son and the longer, moodier colors, they ended up dragging a little.
And when you're competing against the relentless variety of the White Album and the emotional intensity of the John Lennon collection, dragging a little is the difference between advancing and being eliminated.
Absolutely. The album's structural flaw, combined with those slower points, sealed its fourth-place fate. It serves as a monumental lesson. An album's structural integrity can be just as important as the individual songs.
Altering the sequence, even if the tracks are technically brilliant, changes the critical narrative. And
leads to a major subjective ranking downgrade.
A truly revelatory discovery for Phil Collins fans and critics alike. But we have to move on to the third-place contender, the hard rock challenger, who survived round one but fell just short here. The Better Life by Three Doors Down.
Right, so we make a significant leap forward in time and genre here. The Better Life, released in 2000, is positioned by Greens to Rocks as more grungy than he remembered it.
Placing it firmly in that post-grunge, late 90s, early 2000s rock space.
Yeah, but the source material is quick to distinguish it from its contemporaries. It's not just categorized as another grunge band, which is a critical point that really speaks to the production details.
What's the core distinction, then?
The core critical observation is that this album has a distinct musical clarity not repeated by their grunge contemporaries. Right. If you think about albums from that era, say early Bush or certain Soundgarden records, they often used a lot of distortion and a somewhat muddy, compressed sound.
Sure, that 90s rock production sound.
Exactly. The Better Life, by contrast, is noted for its clean power chords and a driving rhythm section.
So what does that musical clarity actually entail? Is that a technical assessment of the mastering or the mix?
It is absolutely a technical assessment. It suggests a more transparent mix. While the guitars are heavy, they aren't oversaturated. The low end, the bass and kick drum, is clearly articulated, providing that driving rhythm section without becoming muffled.
So it avoids that wall of sound effect that was so common in the genre.
It's muscle without the muddiness.
And what about the vocalist, Brad Arnold? How does his delivery contribute to this sound profile?
Arnold's singing is noted for being in a lower and slightly disconcerting register. He often delivers his vocals in a deeper, maybe less conventional range for a mainstream rock singer.
Right.
And this low-end vocal style, it reinforces the weight and seriousness of the tracks. It contributes significantly to the album's unique feel. It prevents the music from becoming purely anthemic pop rock and roots it closer to that grunge ethos.
So overall, the verdict is actually quite positive for a hard rock debut.
It is. It's described as remaining a cool hard rock album with numerous inspired rock and roll moments. Greens to Rocks singles out tracks like Duck and Run and Not Enough as perfect examples of where the rhythm section and that clean production truly shine. They're just powerful, well-crafted rock songs.
And let's not forget the commercial detail we mentioned earlier, because Kryptonite was just colossal
It was a cultural touchstone of the time. Greenstocks, in his notes, he expresses surprise that he never realized until he was writing this that it actually reached #3 on the American charts.
Wow.
It just demonstrates its pervasive commercial reach. It wasn't just a rock hit. It was a bona fide pop phenomena.
Okay, so we have a solid effort, high commercial success, great production clarity, and the ability to beat gold by ABBA in round 1. Why then did it finish 3rd here? Why did it fall short of 2nd place?
This is where the subjective term imagination enters the fray, and it's the deciding factor.
Imagination.
Yes. The Better Life was relegated to 3rd because, despite its strength and its clarity and its powerful performance, it was deemed lacking the imagination of the next album on the list, the John Lennon Collection. It delivered raw power and technical competence, the muscle, but not the visionary scope required to advance further in this quest category.
That's a critical yet fuzzy distinction. Muscle versus imagination. The physical force of Three Doors Down lost to the ethereal illusion of Lennon. That is the perfect segue to the runner-up, the album that secured the 2nd qualifying spot, the John Lennon Collection.
We shift now from aggressive, tight rock to the introspective, politically charged, and deeply personal work of a master craftsman. This collection is noted for having an innocence that belies the craftsmanship at work. It compiles Lennon's finest solo output, and its power is immediately apparent. But the analysis here is wonderfully balanced. Greenstocks treats this not as some saintly relic, but as a piece of music to be critically evaluated.
And he openly admits the collection is not wall-to-wall brilliance.
That honesty is crucial for a credible ranking. To understand why it ranks 2nd, we have to first address the perceived weak spots he cited, the things that prevented it from challenging the White Album for 1st place.
Okay, let's start with what is arguably his most famous protest anthem.
Give Peace a Chance. It's cited as being repetitive almost to the point of maddening. While the song's historical and cultural importance is massive, its endurance as a pure, engaging listening experience on a compilation is questioned. It's powerful, but it's lyrically minimalist and structurally simple, which might detract when it's placed alongside his more complex ballads.
Okay, then there are the tracks that sound more personal or maybe less polished.
Dear Yoko is noted as sounding slightly throwaway, perhaps too simple or quickly written, failing to carry the weight of other tracks dedicated to his personal life.
Right.
And the cover song choice, which is a standard in many compilations, is challenged. The Stand By Me cover is deemed wholly unnecessary within the context of his strongest, most original solo work.
And what about Cold Turkey?
Cold Turkey, an incredibly raw and uncompromising track about withdrawal, is flagged as probably an acquired taste.
Let's focus on that for a second. Why is it an acquired taste? What does that mean here?
Musically, it's visceral, it's jarring. It uses dissonance and raw, almost screaming vocal deliveries to communicate the physical and emotional pain of detox. It is not meant to be a pleasant listening experience.
So for a general music fan, particularly one looking for those diaphanous melodies elsewhere on the collection,
this track serves as an emotionally uncomfortable outlier. It makes it a difficult fit within the compilation's overall flow.
So we have several tracks that are either frustratingly simple, disposable, or actively difficult to listen to. Why, then, did this album rise above the immaculate, but seriously, and the solid rocker Better Life?
It rises because Lennon's best work, even when it's mixed with lesser material, is so transcendent and artistically demanding that it elevates the entire experience far above the competition. The sheer quality and enduring emotional resonance of his peak songs is described as demanding your attention. This is the definition of imagination, overcoming mere technical competence.
Okay, so we have to elaborate on those specific tracks of genius that secured his 2nd place position and subsequent advancement to round 3.
The tracks that inject the necessary visionary scope and quality are unequivocally Jealous Guy, Imagine, Woman, and Whatever Gets You Through the Night. These are the songs that embody the sophisticated artistic vision that Three Doors Down was judged to lack.
And they possess a timeless quality that transcends the specific production issues or sequencing problems that plagued Phil Collins.
Right. And the quality of this work is described using this incredibly rich, evocative language, specifically the term diaphanous melodies.
For our listener, what does diaphanous mean in a musical context? Why is that the perfect description here?
That's a wonderful word choice, and it speaks to the subtlety of Lennon's songwriting. Diaphanous literally means sheer, light, or translucent. In a musical context, it refers to melodies that feel effortless, subtle, and almost dreamlike. They aren't heavy or aggressively catchy. They are permeable. They just easily flow into your subconscious.
So those diaphanous melodies, particularly in tracks like Imagine and Woman, they succeed because they paint a visionary, dreamlike experience directly into the imagination of any music fan.
Yes, they create an immersive world for you, the listener. This isn't just about constructing a good chord progression. It's about synthesizing emotion, political thought, and melody into something universally resonant and emotionally transporting. And that transformative ability is the key element of imagination that allowed Lennon to triumph over the powerful but structurally conservative hard rock of Three Doors Down.
The power of a visionary experience securing second place in advancement, which brings us to the undisputed winner of Round 2, Group 31, standing head and shoulders above everything else, the Beatles' eponymous 1968 double album, The White Album.
This album is a critical beast. It's often labeled as either their best or their most chaotic, and Green Rocks immediately identifies the critical challenge in evaluating it.
Which is?
It's not an album experience like Street Pepper.
And this contrast is vital. Street Pepper is the epitome of the concept album, unified by theme, flow, and studio wizardry. The White Album rejects all of that discipline.
Yeah.
So why is the lack of a concept its ultimate strength in this subjective competition?
Because the White Album is categorized instead as a songbook of disparate ideas.
Mm-hmm.
It's a massive collection of 30 songs that were written during a highly fertile yet highly fractured period for the band. It's eclectic because it showcases the four dominant creative forces: Lennon, McCartney, Harrison, and even Starrall, writing independently without needing to force cohesion.
It's essentially a historical document of the band fracturing, but presented as a listening experience.
That's a great way to put it.
This is crucial for the listener. In this quest, breadth and quantity of high-quality material ultimately trumped conceptual unity.
Exactly. The breadth means that the White Album offers something for everyone, often within the space of just 2 tracks. The sheer infectious novelty and staying power are cited as key factors for its win.
Mm-hmm.
Green Rocks notes the album's ability to just lodge songs into the listener's mind, stating he has awoken many a morning with one of the 30 songs across this double album repeating inside my brain.
That speaks to its immediate, visceral, and unforgettable connection.
It does.
I think we need to spend some time justifying that eclecticism. Maybe by addressing the tracks that are often cited as weaknesses or quirks, the novelty tracks.
Yeah.
Critics sometimes point to those as flaws.
That's fair. But in this specific quest, they are seen as textural strengths. Tracks like The Continuing Story of Bungalow Bill and Rocky Raccoon, which are definitely quirky, sometimes silly narratives,
Right.
are explicitly noted as being musically sound and deeply infectious. They're not seen as filler, they're part of the variety. They contribute to the feeling that you're listening to this vast songbook rather than detracting from it. It's an album that embraces its imperfections and its internal conflicts.
Let's discuss the sheer musical depth and range, which Green Rocks describes as connecting directly to my musical receptors. We have to highlight the specific technical evidence for this claim across the genres.
The album's scope is staggering.
Okay.
It demonstrates the band's mastery over almost every contemporary genre.
Okay, start with the heavy stuff.
The rock music here is profound. We have Helter Skelter, which is described as the heaviest rock the Beatles ever committed to record.
That is a huge claim. What makes it so heavy?
It's the intentional rawness and the volume. It far exceeds anything they had done before. You've got the distorted, fuzz-laden bass line, the manic, ragged vocal delivery by Paul McCartney, and crucially, Ringo Starr's drumming. It's raw, it's untamed, and it ends with him famously screaming, "I've got blisters on my fingers." This is aggressive proto-metal energy that was revolutionary for 1968.
That context is vital. It's not just heavy for the Beatles, it's a pioneering piece of rock music in general.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then you can swing immediately to the other side of the spectrum. You have the phenomenal ballads and folk songs, which demonstrate their melodic genius, while My Guitar Gently Weeps, featuring Eric Clapton's soaring emotional guitar solo.
And the acoustic artistry of Blackbird.
Blackbird is an exercise in minimalist acoustic perfection.
It really is.
It's recorded with such intimacy, just McCartney's voice and his acoustic guitar, that it draws the listener inward, offering this profound sense of musical contrast to the preceding chaos.
And you still have the pure bouncy pop structures.
Right, like Obla-Dee Obla-Da, which, though it's sometimes dismissed as frivolous, it just showcases their ability to write catchy, accessible music that stands the test of time.
The variety is the ultimate weapon here. The White Album secures the top spot because it offers such a vast, diverse, and uniformly high-quality collection of songs, a true songbook.
This quest's specific subjective analysis, that breadth, proved untouchable. It demonstrated not just imagination, but imagination across a 30-song canvas.
So we have dissected the deep, often personal reasoning behind Greenstarox's choices. Now it's time to finalize the scorecard for Round 2, Group 31. This officially confirms the 2 qualifying albums proceeding into Round 3 of this massive album quest.
Okay, let's review the final order, from eliminated to advancing.
Go ahead.
In 4th place, eliminated from the quest due to issues of sequencing and lagging momentum, was Seriously by Phil Collins.
Okay.
In 3rd place, eliminated for lacking the necessary visionary imagination, was The Better Life by Three Doors Down.
And the 2 albums advancing to Round 3 are?
In 2nd place, The Visionary Power of the John Lennon Collection by John Lennon. And in 1st place, the undisputed champion of this group, the eclectic and comprehensive White Album by the Beatles.
The structural and critical takeaways from this single grouping are just profound. It moves beyond simple technical assessment and shows us how we, as listeners, truly internalize and rank musical art.
That is the core insight here. This analysis was not purely technical. It was heavily influenced by Greenstarox's relationship with the music, sometimes in deeply surprising ways that defy conventional criticism.
We saw how personal history directly impacted the ranking, most starkly with Phil Collins. The familiarity, that LP track order he learned by heart, it superseded the objective quality of the songs.
Yeah. Altering the sequence, for all intents and purposes, fundamentally lowered his enjoyment and consequently the critical ranking. This forces us to question how much of our own musical judgment is really about habit.
Then we saw how that elusive concept of imaginative scope was the deciding factor between 3rd and 2nd place.
Right. The Better Life was structurally sound, tightly produced, and commercially successful. It had the muzzle.
But it was judged against and defeated by the visionary dreamlike experience and imaginative reach provided by Lennon's best solo work.
And finally, the sheer breadth and diverse quality of the White Album proved superior to concept. It wasn't consistency or a singular vision that won. It was the overwhelming quantity of disparate, high-quality, and deeply memorable material that secured its victory and advancement in the quest.
And there's a wonderful, almost poetic irony in the final results, isn't there? Something that ties the entire group's focus together.
There really is. The 2 albums advancing belong to the founding members of the same iconic band. The Beatles' core legacy and John Lennon's powerful solo continuation both triumphed over the massive pop rock success of Phil Collins and the hard rock energy of Three Doors Down.
It shows a distinct, powerful preference for that specific musical lineage, the Fab Four and their legacy, within this segment of the overall album quest.
It's truly fascinating how, even in a randomized battle, the weight of history and legendary talent just finds a way to assert its dominance.
We have covered an incredible amount of ground today. From the trauma caused by jumbled CD track orders to the defining power of a 60s songbook written by 4 competing geniuses.
The journey through Group 31 has been incredibly revealing. It shows that sequence can matter as much as substance, and imagination can decisively trump mere technical quality.